Like, I'm the only girl in group. I'm the only Black person, and I'm coming along with this kid. Again, nobody ever said anything to me, but, you feel a way about, I'm not a regular student. I needed a babysitter bad. And so my advisor, he said, "We're gonna help you, and you're gonna let us." My name is Temika Cage, and my unpopular decision was choosing to pursue college after becoming a teen parent despite the financial strain and the societal pressure to pursue something more realistic.
If you've ever felt that people change their expectations for you after one mistake or one setback, this episode is for you. At 15 years old, Temika Cage became a mother. A star student until then, people immediately started lowering their expectations for her, but she didn't. Temika grew up in a religious family in Michigan, where teen pregnancy often led others to shrink their ambitions and stay close to home. This is the story of a young woman who refused to let a single chapter define the rest of her life. That decision would lead her to leave home and attend Michigan State University with her daughter in tow, ultimately defying the odds to graduate and become a software engineer. I'm your host, Jameelah Calhoun, and this is Unpopular Decisions, the show about building your life on your own terms, even when it feels like disappointing others. If you've been enjoying our content, don't forget to subscribe wherever you get your podcasts and take a moment to leave us a review. It really helps us spread the word. Let's get into it. Temika, thank you so much for being on Unpopular Decisions.
I'm happy to be here.
So before we dive in, I'd love for you to share with our audience what your unpopular decision is.
My name is Temika Cage, and my unpopular decision was choosing to pursue college after becoming a teen parent despite the financial strain and the societal pressure to pursue something more realistic.
Your story is really incredible. I mean, to contextualize, I was reading only 2% of teen parents actually go on to graduate from college, especially within 6 years of going to college. So you're really part of a rare, rare group. That's really incredible and impressive.
Thank you. I think over the years, and especially while going through college, I thought that, this was easy. And now that I look back on it, especially in the eyes of, my child who is now past college age, I'm like, oh my God, I did that.
Yes, like we don't give ourselves credit, especially as Black women, because we're taught to be strong. Society expects us to be strong. We actually just don't give ourselves credit for the situation where we were strong, that it took a lot out of us. I'm glad that at least in this moment, you're starting to appreciate how rare and special your experience was.
Yeah. And I try not to frame it as rare because I feel like that makes it seem like it's not repeatable.
Mm.
So I struggle with that, and I struggle with thinking that I'm special. I know what I went through was especially challenging,
Right.
but I try to frame it as it will be hard, but I think that what I did is repeatable. Very hard, but repeatable.
Yeah, and one of the reasons I'm so glad that you were willing to be on this show and share your story is the fact that it is meant to inspire people who maybe feel like, I had a circumstance come up in my life and, close shop. Like I just gotta settle. I just gotta accept that my plan for my life is completely disrupted. You never allowed your circumstance to have you waver, which I think is so powerful. You mentioned, that it was, of course, a difficult kind of journey in various different ways. But when you made the decision to go to college away from home and bring your daughter, what felt unpopular or risky about that choice to you at that time?
I think what was risky was the fact that I wanted to take my daughter. I did not imagine going to college without her. It wasn't, "Oh, I'm gonna leave her here." Because each grandparent was like, "Hey, leave her here with us, go off to college." Like, I knew I could do college without her, but that wasn't gonna happen. So me deciding that I wanted to do that and then verbalizing it to my parents let me know that, "Hey, nobody wants you to do this. Nobody thinks that you can do this either."
Wow. I mean, there's the belief piece that you mentioned. And then of course there's potentially shame and other feelings of being judged that also probably came up during this time. What was the relationship and reaction that you experienced from your parents around not just going to college, but around your becoming a teen mom?
So, because I grew up in a very religious household where they tell you to wait until you're married, but, all the kids are born out of wedlock, which makes no sense. But me becoming a teen parent was an ultimate shock. I don't wanna say I was the golden child, but I had a sister who would get into a lot of trouble. I think they were kinda banking on me to become something, so they don't have 2 kids that, are troublemakers. So me becoming pregnant was like, this doesn't fit the image that we have for our family." So that was a shock, but I think they did a good job of, in the beginning, hiding some of the shame they also had for me becoming pregnant, especially in the church, but I could still see it as a kid. So I used to have to go to church all the time, and once I became pregnant, it's like, "Oh, well, you don't have to go. You can stay home, and there's not the pressure." I wake up on Sunday, everybody's already gone, or, church is already started. I'm like, usually, somebody wakes me up. I'm trying to be careful with my words here. I would say in the beginning, they did a good job of just, not shaming me about the whole experience, just being excited of later on about being grandparents.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's so many layers around their reaction. Understanding your relationship to the faith was probably another big aspect.
Yeah, but I don't see, here's the thing with religion, I never tapped into any of those beliefs. Like, I never signed up to be the purity child. I think it was just what, especially my mother, I think that's what she had envisioned for me. I remember growing up, and there's something she would always say about me liking peas. And she was just like, my child is, she loves eating her vegetables. And she didn't know that I was balling up the peas in paper towel and throwing them away.
Hmm.
But she had it in her head that this is my child who loves peace, or this is my child who enjoys going to church and reading scripture, but that's the personality that she built for me. I never signed up for any of that stuff, and I think if she paid attention to me, she would have saw that.
I'm picking up on this dynamic of there's always a story of us girls going to school and changing our outfit. Like there's aspects where you're hiding parts of yourself, parts of your personality that you feel are kind of stretching what your parents expect for you. It sounds like that was definitely part of how you coped.
Yeah, because you literally didn't have a choice. Like, you had to go to church every time, you had to participate in all the activities. I present for a living, I get on stages, I speak, and I'm not afraid to speak, and a lot of times people ask me, "How did you get that confidence?" I said, "Since I've been 3 years old, my mother has been making me get up in front of the church and read the Bible, say the prayer, say the Lord's Prayer, do an Easter speech." I had been forced to do that, but there was never any type of moment where I think as a parent, she dived deep into who I truly was. Because we probably could have avoided the teenage pregnancy if she realized who she was dealing with.
Well, you've talked about your mom had like a completely erroneous version of the future that she hoped for you. At that time, what was the future you hoped for yourself?
So I've always been a star student, like top of the class. So we all knew that I was going to college, and my real father, all of his kids were known to be like really smart. Like my smart supposedly came from my biological father's side of the family. So my mom knew at an early age that this one is going to go to college. But, having the kid, I think, threw a monkey wrench in the plan for others, but not for me. Like, that never changed what I thought.
For others, they're probably thinking about the statistics. Only 50% of teen moms receive a high school diploma. It also sounds like there were some other teen moms were around and experiencing their own journey. Were there other teen moms? Were some of those expectations set because of what other people experienced?
So a lot of women in my family have babies early, and none of them go to college. Not saying that they don't grow up to be successful in their own right, definitely taking care of their children and, building legacies the way they want to, but nobody went to college. And when you had a kid, people would have to drop out from the regular high school and go to the alternative high school or get a GED. So I think that once I got pregnant, it's like, this is going to be her reality. But I think they quickly started to see because I maintained being a star student. Actually, my grades got better once my daughter was born. So it's like she is still going to go to college. I just don't think they realized I'm taking my baby with me.
I'm struck by how much you were unwavering in your focus on your dream and the confidence that you were going to make it, even if everybody else started to kind of reset their expectations for you. What do you credit for keeping you steady and confident on your path?
My daughter, I still to this day think that she is responsible for a lot of my achievements because I was determined to give her a different life. As I was experiencing things in her first 2 years of life in my home, in my childhood home, I just knew I was like, this is not the way that I'm gonna raise my child, and she deserves to live a different way. Like, they don't ask to be here. She has always been my guiding light. I'm still to this day thinking about the legacy that I'm leaving for her. I look at that face, I look at that person that I brought in the world. Hey, we gotta get to it.
It's wonderful how it's clarifying and provided so much purpose for you. Thinking about these big conversations that parents have to have, with their children. Growing up in a more religious household, were there any conversations happening around sexuality and contraception around the time that you did become pregnant? And how did you basically kind of come to your own knowledge about your sexuality?
Maybe there were 2 conversations I had with my mom about sex or the reproductive system. So when I first started my cycle, she was just like, "Okay, now teach you how to clean up yourself because Black families don't play the stanking or anything. Clean up yourself. This is where you put these pads." But I remember her mentioning, "Now you can get pregnant." And I'm just like, "Oh, okay, girl." At that time, I'm not having sex, and I'm just like, "Been getting pregnant is for grown-ups." And then the next time we had a conversation is because one of the boys that I was engaged with a couple of years after I started my cycle and I'm in the world experiencing this new body, told his parents about us having sex and it all came out. And I remember I think his grandmother had told my mom and my mom was like, "What?" So this was maybe at least a year or 2 before I became pregnant. And for me, if I'm putting myself in her shoes, we're going straight to Planned Parenthood. We gonna get you on some birth control. And my mom always said that putting kids on birth control gave them permission to have sex. And I told her later on, like, who did you think was about to ask you for permission?
Like, I want to see how that conversation would go. Like, how do you think that?
Right. Like, girl, I was never going to ask you for permission. Actually, I didn't care what you thought. Another conversation we had was about who was supposed to teach me about reproductive health, who was supposed to take me to get on birth control or tell me about that. And she told me the school. And that is just mind boggling to me, especially since sex ed isn't that informative at all in some places. And I'm just like, there's no way I would leave that responsibility on the school. That's a conversation I want to be a part of
Right.
because there can be so much misinformation. But that's the way my mom thought. But I grew up like in Southern Baptist church. It was just you don't do it. You don't have sex. One, I'm a Scorpio. I was doing something. It was gonna happen. But I just think that's crazy for folks to tell teenagers with these new bodies and ovulation makes you feel like a cat in heat.
Look, okay, well, I hear you. Many studies have shown that teen pregnancy is more likely in abstinence only education environments. So, what you're saying makes perfect sense. And yeah, we got a lot going on, hormones, we're learning different things.
And this was middle school for me. And now that I look back, I'm just like, that's crazy to be engaging in that type of behavior in middle school. But when you don't receive any guidance, that's what's going to happen. I don't think it's a fault of my own that I engaged in these behaviors.
Well, definitely, that's what adults are meant to be there for guidance, to be able to provide you with perspective. But maybe before we get into more of the layers here, maybe we could stop and play our game on the show. Would you rather? So I feel like high school is just such a messy time in general. So would you rather have your entire high school MySpace? Because we grown, so no Facebook, no Instagram. Okay. MySpace leaked for your high school browsing history?
Oh, MySpace, because I really didn't have one, that or Black Planet. I remember everyone having one, but I was just not interested. But my browsing history, absolutely not. I don't want y'all to see none of that.
I know my Facebook was lame, like, truly. So, I know there was nothing on there. So, I'm with you. We gotta keep the browsing
The
history
browsing
on
history.
lock. So, yeah, throw the laptop in the river, like, it's gone. But, okay, so you've talked a lot about financial independence and literacy. Would you rather have financial freedom, but 0 time and, like, no life freedom? Or would you rather have a lot of life freedom, a lot of free time, but you really are stressed about money?
That is a tough one because some of the most stressful times in my life were around financial insecurity. I don't like that. So now I'm on the other side where I'm experiencing more financial security, but I'm still a little bit stressed. And I will take what I'm experiencing now over that. I do not like being stressed about money. I'd rather have a bunch of it and just can't enjoy it, but not having it and being free, but like, how are we gonna eat today?
No, I feel that. I'm relatively similar. It's actually interesting because I feel like during the time where we were coming up, it's the birth of reality TV. And it was also like, to me, the messiest time of reality TV. This is OG, Nene Leakes. This is Wife Swap, like iconic shows. But there was Teen Mom actually as another show that during this time. So I was curious, like, did you watch the show when it came out? Do you think you would have gone on the show?
So thank God it came out after, but had it been a show like around the time I got pregnant, I would apply. Absolutely, I would have applied. I watched a few episodes, but I didn't follow because I didn't see myself necessarily represented on the show. That, I remember a lot of the stars from that series being white, so it didn't resonate for me.
Right. Well, actually, maybe that's where we'll go with this in terms of like how you thought about how your story fit into the broader narratives in society about teen mothers. Of course, as many people know, teen pregnancy rates have declined by like 75% over the last couple decades. But during this time, it was, a known thing. How did your kind of high school teachers, classmates, other people around respond to what you were going through?
I think I had a hard time telling the people who I looked up to or that I had close bonds with that I was pregnant. So, of course, my friends knew, but I remember my cousin who was one of the kind of star students at the school. And at this point, I'm like 5, 6 months pregnant in the cafeterias, like somebody I've looked up to like all my life. And she was like, "Are you pregnant?" And I was like, "Yeah." And I kind of put my head down and said, don't do that. The teachers, nobody ever said anything crazy to me, but I could sense things, but I can say a lot of things were not verbalized, and there were still people that still supported me or still treated me the same regardless of what happened, but I can tell that the expectations for me lowered.
Wow.
I can tell that they were lowered down for me because I became pregnant, and I get it because that's what happened when girls would get pregnant in my community. What they could become prior to pregnancy didn't happen once they got pregnant.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of times there is this idea of like dreams deferred or canceled, sometimes. I'm curious, especially in this time where, for example, a woman's right to choose is starting to be under attack in certain areas of the country when women find themselves in a very difficult situation and thinking about the dreams that they've had for themselves they do consider potentially terminating a pregnancy. Was that ever something that you considered when you first found out that you were pregnant?
I was not given the choice. Like, nobody ever sat down with me and asked me what I wanted to do. I look back at my time as a teen parent or becoming pregnant. I look through it now in the lens of a parent because I've now raised somebody through the teenage years. I know my parents did what they thought was best. I hold space and grace for that, but I just could not imagine my child becoming pregnant and we not sit down and discuss what is your hope. Because at the end of the day, it was still my life. It was still my body that had to go through it, but it was never a conversation on whether or not I was having a baby. It was like, "Are you pregnant? Okay. Well, when is your due date?" Which I was shocked because I would have thought they wanted to hide it or get rid of the quote unquote problem, but that was not the case.
When they embraced your pregnancy or just kind of accepted it, did it feel like in that moment that you felt more seen by them or supported by them in a way that you hadn't been before?
Maybe, but it still just felt like I was going through the motions and I didn't have a choice in this matter. Like I was still in that stage of doing whatever I'm told, just like the church. It was not a part of who I am, but no, you're going to get up and go to church. And I felt like, oh, I got pregnant. Oh, you're going to have this baby. It was just me kind of going through the motions and preparing for it mentally. Because I conceived at 14 years old. I don't think I understood the gravity of how heavy this decision was. I didn't realize how big of how major this was that I was pregnant and gonna be a mom at 15 years old, like, and the way it would shape my life, and I don't think she was also the same age, so I can't see her asking the same questions either. So I don't think I was having mature enough conversations because I was not mature enough to be in the situation I was in. So I don't think I was looking for support because I didn't know I needed it.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I'm wondering about your daughter's father in this, whose life also was going to change at this moment. What was his reaction like in the moment? And then his parents' potential reaction?
His parents came up probably a month later, and I think that's when they connected with my parents, but it was pretty much like, "Okay, she's having the kid, let's move forward." I think when you are the parent of the male, there's not much that you can say or do because the baby is inside the teenager at this point, but I didn't get a bad reaction from his mom. She welcomed me with open arms, like, immediately. She was a teen parent. So I think that made a difference too, of her probably understanding what I was going through. Like, at this point, if you've been a teen parent, you're already dealing with your own shame. Nobody needs to pile it on you.
No, for sure. I mean, thinking about that, your own shame, right? And a lot of the show, we are talking about the shame or the projections that other people put on us when we're trying to live our lives or certain things happen. But a lot of times it's really just our own kind of internalized shame and experience of our identity. What was that experience for you thinking about your own identity, thinking about your own confidence during this time period?
I'm becoming more vocal about what I experience. I am now starting to shed a lot of the shame, and that child is almost 24 years old. So I carried it with me a lot, and I think a lot of it has to do with being raised in a religious society, patriarchal society that, you are supposed to be this upstanding woman, this purity mess. And so I'm now starting to see it as it was more of a superpower than a hindrance. No matter if everybody else is on board with it, it was a superpower for me. But it's a lot to go through that, and you just think that you made the wrong decision or you could have made a better decision or you let everybody down. There is a scene in The Color Purple, and I remember my mom using it to describe me, and she was joking. It stuck with me for years. It was a part of the shame that I carried. But there's a scene in Color Purple where I think what was the man? Mister said something about she's been spoiled twice,
Mm.
and my mom thought it was funny. Those were the type of things that you end up carrying with you, and you don't realize how much that impacts you and how people could possibly think of you. I said I wasn't gonna cry today.
No, it's so real. People don't realize the power that words have. It's oof, just the fact that it comes across in jokes. Like people say, "Oh, it's just jokes," or "I'm just kidding," but sometimes that carries even more weight, even more meaning. You said it so casually that that means you don't think anything about me or how this might impact me.
Right, and I think there's truth to every joke. As a person who is definitely gonna get some jokes off, there's always some truth in the joke. And so I know that's how she felt about me. It's still tied to religion and, this perfect daughter narrative and how I ruined that. And I think she was hurt by my actions, which again, I hold space and grace for people doing the best that they know how and operating in situations the best they can. But this is what happened and this is how it impacted me.
I can imagine your relationship with your parents was strained after you've given birth. How did your relationship with them evolve during the rest of your high school period or, as you went on and thought about college?
I remember the first report card after I found out I was pregnant. Remind the audience I was always a star student. And so my grades dropped a little bit. And I remember my mom telling me, she was like, "You're going to let this boy ruin your life." And I didn't like the way she said that. And I took it personal. And so my grades they never dropped after that. I think my grades were never below a 3.6 after that. In doing that, I showed them that I can still be successful and be a parent at the same time. And of course, if somebody's doing well, you support them. So they started to support me in my endeavor. And once my child came, they were very supportive. In junior year and then senior year, I'm a star student. Then I got pregnant again, and that's when a lot of the statements that I just brought up from The Color Purple happened. There are other ways to express your hurt and your grief of the child that you thought you had, but we were butting heads left and right. I think I fist fought everybody in that house that second semester. It was a lot. I got put out 3 times. It was so much going on that last semester, and I don't think we healed from that until maybe towards the end of my freshman year of college.
Mm. So that's like 2 years. That was difficult.
Yeah, about a year, and I think part of that healing is because I left. I don't think we heal if we're in the same house.
It's a big kind of moment to recognize that the parents that you felt were showing up for you when you had your first child, when you faced another big, scary moment in your life, really threw that away. I mean, to put you out of the house.
I think they just didn't know what to do. I think that they were just really trying to raise me and not knowing what would get me to come around and do the things that they asked me. And even as a parent, I don't know what the right answer to do with me. Like I don't know what they were supposed to do. I just know that it was all bad. It was all bad that second semester.
And pardon if you don't want to talk about this, but I don't believe that you have two children. What was kind of the conversation that you and your family had when you found out that you were pregnant again?
So I had found out I was pregnant in December of my senior year. And in my head, I was going to hide it. I knew better. I was just like, I'm not telling them. So I had been to school with people who had hid pregnancy. So I was like, I can do it. And so I still to this day have an umbilical hernia that I have not had fixed. And that senior year, I was supposed to go to surgery to get my little umbilical hernia fixed. And so we go into surgery and we're getting ready. I said, "What is that cup for?" She said, "Oh, a pregnancy test." I said, "Mind you, I already know I'm pregnant. The OBGYN done confirmed it." And so I pee in the cup and I just go in the room. I just wait. Before it even comes back, the nurse is in there asking me questions. She was like, "When was the first day of your last period?" "It's January." I'm like, "November?" And you could see my mom just like the blood leave her face. Like, I know this girl is not pregnant again. And as a parent, I get it. I understand. And so I can't have the surgery and still to this day, I still haven't had it. And we go home and both of them were like, "You are either gonna have an abortion or you need to find somewhere else to say." Because in their head, you're not about to keep having kids and, we're footing the bill, and it was never a conversation on what do you want to do. It was, "This is what you're gonna have to do if you want the support from us." And again, I don't know what they were supposed to do. I still don't have an answer for that. I can just tell you how it made me feel. And so, I got put out the house. Me and my boyfriend at the time tried to figure it out, and at that point, I just realized that I was gonna have to give in, and have an abortion and move back home.
Wow.
And so the abortion hasn't been a memory that has stayed with me, but how we got to that moment has stayed with me to this day.
Yeah.
Yeah. Everything worked the way that it was supposed to work, I'm guessing, and I became who I was supposed to be in spite of.
Mhm.
Those are memories that took a lot to work past.
Absolutely. Well, they talk a lot in mental health space about, healing in relationship with others, like having a reparative relationship that helps you work through some of the hurts that you've had in other relationships. Of course, a lot of this story is about you doing just an amazing job raising your daughter through incredibly challenging circumstances. Your relationship with your parents notwithstanding, you did go on to college and find yourself actually bringing a baby with you. Just before we even get to your college experience and how you made it through those engineering courses, because I don't know if I told my audience, but I tried to be pre med when I went to college and I went to the science classes and I was like, so we're going to switch majors real quick. So I can just imagine doing engineering in college with a baby on campus. But of course, the college application process in and of itself is so intense. And you're going through a really challenging period with your family during that same time. What was going through your head when you were applying to colleges? How you think about where you wanted to go and make that decision ultimately?
So college for me was always a ticket out of the hood. So I knew that I was going. It was just, where am I going? Because of my grades and my test scores, I got a few full rides offered. But then there was the first college I've ever visited when I was 10 years old. I went to Michigan State University to check out the campus and do a tour. And I remember at 10 saying, I'm going here. But I'm 16, 17 now, and I need to figure out what I'm going to do with this baby. And something was just still steering me towards Michigan State, even though I had full ride offers from other schools. And I was just, I don't want to go there. And so I was hell bent on still going to Michigan State. We had an on-site admissions officer come and they read my essay about me having a kid. They saw my transcript, they saw my test scores, they admitted me on the spot, and so that part wasn't hard for me. It was like, "Okay, now we have to pay for it." Like, if I saw a scholarship application, 500 here, 1,000 here, I was applying for it. A lot of this was during that 2nd semester where I'm going through all of this stuff with my family. That's me getting the abortion, me getting put out the house, whatever my parents was going through, and did everything I could to make sure I could get school paid for and have extra money. When I finally brought my daughter up to campus shortly after I turned 18, I go to the welfare office to get, like, food stamps and things like that, and you have to come with your, financial award letter. I take the award letter in there, and the caseworker, she says, "Hey, I'm gonna get you food stamps, I'm gonna get you Medicaid, but I'm not gonna let you apply for cash assistance." And she told me, "They're gonna make you quit school." And she saw that I didn't have any loans on my award letter. She took the award letter. It's like some little middle-aged white lady, and she's taking it around to the other caseworkers and like, "This girl has a full ride." First 2 years, I made sure it was paid for, but she was just so proud of me, and I thank God for that caseworker. "Imma get you what I can get you, but I'm not gonna let you be thrown to the wolves, because if you get cash, at least in Michigan, they make you apply for jobs and work. Ain't no going to school." That is why a lot of the women who had kids early, that's what happens when you're trying to survive. So the system is not set up for you to go off to college and get an engineering degree. That's not gonna happen. Yeah, I got what I could because I knew if I asked for cash, they would make me quit, and that wasn't an option.
I literally have goosebumps about the people, and sometimes it's strangers who change the trajectory of your life. You're just like, I don't know this person's name. There are people in my life who have done that for me too. And what an angel. She's someone that's incredibly special to have done that for you in that moment. But I'm also just struck by how much determination you had through this whole process. I know you mentioned when you were younger, you didn't know that you needed support, but clearly by the time you got to this point, you were so proactive. I'm wondering, you head to campus and logistically, that's got to be incredibly difficult. And you're away from a family support system. How did you seek out support and a village when you got to campus itself?
Like I said, I would look for support, I think, in formal settings like the government or financial aid or scholarships. But it took a lot for me to depend on people because coming from my family background, I didn't go off to college thinking that people were dependable. It was still like you could be here today, but tomorrow you may flake on me. And so it was hard for me. So I would get everything that I could find in the formal sense, but the rest of the stuff that I needed, maybe like social support and things like that, I'm just like, no, I don't need it. I'll figure it out. And you cannot raise a kid without a village. Like, there's just no way it's going to happen. And so people started showing up in my life. And again, I said, I'm not going to cry today. People started showing up in my life and think God knew that, hey, I'm gonna have to force this girl to open up and let somebody support her. And one of the first organizations on campus that meant a lot to me was Student Parents on a Mission, which was started by a Black woman in the mid 90s who was on campus and was a mom, a single mom, and was like, yeah, so we need support on this campus like we matter to. It still exists to this day. And they give out so many resources. And here's the thing, this is why things need to be created. And I feel like the people that society kind of writes off, like a single mom, a teen mom, starts this organization and now it benefits a lot of the families who come on campus, like the two-parent households who also need help. She started that organization, and it's because of them that I found childcare for my daughter. I found out how to navigate the financial aid system, like so many resources. And then the second organization was the National Society of Black Engineers. You know, I would be in the engineering building with my daughter, would see students. There was like a bunch of Black kids in like this meeting or whatever. And I just walked past because, I'm still carrying the shame of I'm a mom. And then also, you never know when kids cut up. My daughter's a little bad at 3. And I remember a young woman saw me and she said, hey, are you an engineering major? You should come to our meetings. And I said, I have a baby. And she said, bring her. And that meant a lot to me because of that organization. I don't think I graduated without them. I got my first job through the national conference of that organization. And that job changed my life, just like the organization did. And I took my daughter to that first meeting and I would show up with my daughter and they would just like take her from like everybody she became their baby. And people still to this day, they still call her like the NSBE baby. So I'm so grateful for stories like that or angels that was sent to me because I was a little hard headed. I wouldn't let people help me. My senior year, as at this point, this is my 6th year in college trying to finish this electrical engineering program. And I feel like I wore out my welcome with asking people to assist with my daughter. And I needed way more support then because if anybody's ever done a senior project where you are spending hours outside of class on top of me taking 400 level engineering classes. And to this day, like this is why I don't have an advanced degree because that last year took me out. I took one class that was electrical engineering, material science, and like quantum physics. It's called solid state devices. And the class was so hard, the answer key from the textbook manufacturer was wrong. Like that's what type of classes I'm going through on top of, the senior design project. And then I also need to find a job. I still got to work. My daughter is in gymnastics and dance now, and she's still in school. So I'm going through all this. And at some point, I'm like, I'm just going to have to take you to the labs with me. I had my 6, 7-year-old in an engineering lab with engineering goggles on. And I have her tucked in the corner on a computer playing, some kid games. And it's a lot for me because I know like I'm the only girl in the group. I'm the only Black person in this group. And I'm coming along with this kid. Again, nobody ever said anything to me. But, you feel a way about I'm not a regular student. And I needed a babysitter bad. And so my advisor comes to me and he's Black man. We're still cool to this day. Love him and his wife down. And he said, we're going to help you. And you're going to let us. Wow. because I just didn't trust people because support for me had always been wishy-washy. And also, I just didn't trust my baby with anybody. Um, he was like, "We're gonna help you." And his wife actually was a teen mom and had her son in college. And then they introduced me to their best friends who were married, and that woman also was a parent in college, and they would just, like, take turns babysitting my daughter, both their families, and they had kids around the same age as my daughter. That took off a lot of pressure for me my senior year, and I think had he not told me, "You're gonna let us help you," I don't know if I would have accepted it, and I think God knew. He was like, "This child of mine is hard-headed." I don't say it's 20 years ago, at least 15, and it still brings me to tears because I just don't think I finished college without having people in the standing in the gap. This is why I'm adamant on people pursuing their goals, even if they don't know how to do them, because God will send people. He gonna make sure you got what you need.
Beautiful story. I think so many people listening can relate to the idea of growing up in a way that you feel like it all has to be on you. You're the only person that you can control. So you got to do everything for yourself. I feel just moved, and I think so many people hopefully are inspired to show up differently for certain people in their life, but also to give gratitude to the people who've played that role for you. So that's beautiful.
I don't know if this is because I am one of the people that society wrote off, but I'm very leery on people doing that because you don't know what somebody's going to become. You don't know what somebody's going to become. We have seen it time and time again, and maybe we just don't see it enough where people have humble beginnings and they grow up to be something like crazy. The first Black president came from a single parent. Well, I don't say a single parent household, but he was raised by a single mom for a second. Or I think about Rihanna, who was barefoot in Barbados. I just left Barbados this past December. They was like, "Yeah, she used to run around here." She didn't live in the rich part, and you see what her life has become. And I just wish more people would stop writing folks off. And honestly, if you are a person who feels that what you went through was unfair, you don't like the cards that you were dealt, those are probably the traits that you learn from being dealt those cards are probably the ones that are going to change your life or turn your life around. I am who I am because of what I've experienced. Sure, I wish things would have been done differently, but all things work together for the greater good. I'm here, but because of this, I also operate differently in the world. And to your point about everybody else leading with more empathy, I think the world would be a better place, especially politically, if we all led with empathy. Like nobody signs up to be a bad person. Nobody signs up to make mistakes, but they happen. So how do we move forward?
No, you're absolutely right. And it does show just like the power of society investing in you. That's another way of talking about these programs. You went, got assistance, which is absolutely what we want somebody to be able to have to pursue their education. That is us as a society investing in the potential of people, which I'm so glad that you were able to get that support.
Yeah, I call myself a former welfare queen just because it messes with people's idea of a welfare queen. But also, too, if you invest in these folks, they give back. I have paid way more back in taxes. My student loans are paid.
Right. Well, hallelujah to that because student loans are real. Wow. You do use your platform now to talk about financial independence. Like you said, there are so many other paths that people probably expected for you than graduating from college with an engineering degree and then actually being able to be, financially independent, have student loans paid off. Like that was not necessarily what people think of when they think of teen moms. I guess when you felt that you wanted more for yourself and then you were graduating, what made you decide to basically pursue engineering and a job in this space? Was it about financial security at that point in time for you? Or were there bigger things that you were thinking about?
I had a cousin much older cousin, who was in the tech space, and he didn't live nearby us. He lived a few hours away. But I remember when he did the family reunion, it was much different than when everybody else did. So when he did it, we had gigs.
Okay.
And like his house was always nice. He always drove nice cars. And I was just like, I want that life for myself. I was like, oh, he's in tech and engineering. Okay, I'm gonna pursue that. And then my elementary school teachers would always tell me like, you're gonna be an engineer. I was always good at math and science. So people spoke that over me, but you know, growing up seeing what my cousin had, I knew that I wanted a piece of his life. It was much simpler than what I felt like I had growing up. Like I didn't grow up dirt poor, but my family was never getting the crab legs for family my every reunion. So seeing that, and then when it came to financial independence, I think again a part of what I experienced growing up and feeling uneasy in my financial situation drove me to build more of a sturdy foundation in my finances. So in 2014, I was laid off from my first job that I thought I was going to work at forever. I did all the right things. Now I'm laid off, and I was like, my livelihood is now in their hands. And it made me feel like how I felt in high school, where I got to do whatever these people say so I can survive. I don't like that. And that started my financial journey where it don't matter what happened in these corporations, I'm gonna be okay. I had to take it in my own hands.
Oh, yeah. And I know that message is definitely hitting some people in the chest right now because it is a really wild job market right now. So that's amazing that you came out of that difficult experience with that clarity. I'm just imagining what graduation day must have felt like from college. You have this community with NSBE, professors, people spin and seeing your daughter around campus. What was that feeling for you like on that graduation day?
I was nervous because one of the class that I told you about that was really hard, I didn't know if I had.
It was a buzzer beater. You were like, okay, let's see, registrar.
So I don't even think my daughter remembers my graduation. Like she was playing around, but my family was there. A few of my classmates who were still in town were there. And yeah, I remember being good until we got in that line and they were getting ready to call names and I lost it.
Oh,
As y'all can see, I'm crying. And then just getting up to the professor. You know how they take the professional pictures? I just recently got a hold to those because when I graduated, pictures expensive. I did not have the extra money for those pictures. And so I ordered them and I'm just on there, just eyes red, snot, crying, but I ordered it. I'm so glad they still had it in the archives because it was years ago. I remember all the professors shaking my hand and even my advisor who helped, watch my daughter. And I was just like so grateful that I was done.
yeah.
I was done. And the professor in that class, he was like, it's okay. I was like, oh, he passed me. Just get me out of here, please.
Right, right. A real one. Okay. Oh, yeah, I just could imagine all the emotions on that day. It sounds like, of course, like you have spent time on yourself, on therapy since then. Were there parts of yourself that you had to work through forgiving? And also, how did you get to a place to actually forgive your parents?
Think that process doesn't start until I get out of my situation of trying to make it. So I was an autopilot until I graduated from college and then I start working and that's when I can kind of see all the trauma coming up. And I think me and my mom continued to butt heads because there was just a lot of things that I had not gotten past. Like, again, I don't know what is the right answer, but I can just tell you what bothered me. And I think in a way, we're still working past that. I'm in no contact with my mom now. And that's because I gave up trying to work past some of the things, but with my stepfather, we are slowly working past some of the things. And the difference between the two is that my stepfather will recognize that, hey, there were probably some better ways we could have went about raising you and your sister. But my mom is just like, well, I did the best I could, and that don't work well for me. So I think it's still an ongoing process, even if I'm no contact with my mom, because that adds more trauma to it because we're no contact. I think healing this aspect is just a journey.
Well, and some of what you're probably alluding to as well is just forgiveness is relief to heal the parts of yourself that are still carrying the weight. And so even in the situation where you're not in contact, still doing the work is important.
And you see it when you raise a kid because you can think that, "Oh, my parents should have done blah, 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 this and that," and then you get faced or put in some of the same conditions that you were in a child, but now you're on the other side. While I haven't been a perfect parent, I have done my best to, "Okay, I messed up here. How do we move forward?" From my perspective, that's the best you can do as a parent because 'cause we're gonna make mistakes. But it's like, how do we fix this? How do we make sure this doesn't happen again? What do you need from me in order to heal past that? That's what I try to do, and I hope my daughter agrees with that, because ultimately it's up to her on how she feels about it. But, I took my experiences and I said, "Hey, if I think that there's a better way that this could have been handled," I tried to implement that, with my relationship with my daughter, and I think that that is healing me.
As we start to wrap here, I think this has been such a testament to just continuous focus, the continuous amount of self-belief that was happening throughout all of this. What's the pieces of this journey, especially college days and maybe high school as well, that you feel people didn't see, like you were experiencing and holding on your own?
Don't think people understand that I never know what I'm doing. Like, I never know what I'm doing. I'm just like, we're gonna put one foot in front of the other. I am at some point or another in my journey lost, scared, but I know that I gotta get out of my current situation. And come hell or high water, I'm gonna get out of it. And I know a lot of people are scared to get out of their situations because they're like, "Oh, it's hard," but staying in your current situation is harder. Like, I could stay at home and get a factory job and suffer for years, or I can get through these 6 years of college, because that's how long it took me to finish my undergrad, and be set up in a way for life. And I think about now what I'm experiencing, like, the financial journey got me to a point where I know that I can no longer work in this corporate world because it does not suit me, and trying to get out of that. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm scared, but I'm about to figure it out.
Yeah.
Because staying in this current position, like, I'm miserable, and you can feel it in your body, you can feel it in your spirit. It's when God is telling you you need to make a move, and you can either keep resisting it or you can say, "Okay, Imma take a little step forward every day," and that's what I do.
I'm wondering also now, you've started to share more publicly about the journey that you went on and are inspiring other moms out there who face really difficult situations. But I'm wondering outside of your community that you've built, people's response today to you and your daughter having a smaller age gap than expected and things like that. Does that still play a role in how you understand your journey and your experience as a teen mom, or is that just no longer a thing?
Does still play a role in how I am perceived. They're gonna do the calculations and then they're gonna
Mhm.
ask questions, and a lot of people are like, their jaw drops when I tell them, "Yeah, I took my daughter to college while I got an engineering degree." I feel like that may be the most common response, and I think if I get any type of response where it's negative, again, nobody ever verbalizes it to me, but I no longer care. I'm in a great space now where I did all the things that I was supposed to do in spite of it. She turned out to be an amazing child and did the things that society, quote unquote, said we're supposed to do. So even if you look down upon me, I made it.
Yeah.
I made it. The most I may get now is that, like, I'm unmarried, but I don't wanna be married, but I no longer carry the the teen mom shame. I'm quick to tell people, "Oh, we're 15 years apart."
Right. And you look good.
Thank you.
Okay. Well, so much of what you said is inspiring to others who are maybe questioning whether their future is dream deferred or canceled. Right. I think you're a testament to the fact that that doesn't have to be your story. if you don't want it to be. But maybe our final question, which I feel like you already let the haters know a few things in this conversation, but because this show is all about building the courage to live your truth, what would you like to say to the haters, the people who judge teen moms without understanding the reality behind it?
My message for the haters would be that if you had enough encouragement or forgiveness in your own life with your own choices, you may be able to see the light in somebody else. Because you feel down about yourself or because that you think that you are not capable of pursuing other things, you look down on others. And it may be to make yourself feel better. However, if you are inspired or if you encourage someone to pursue past their own mistakes, that good karma, that good juju will come into your own life.
Yeah. Yeah. Bring in the blessings by showing up as someone who sees their potential and not as a hater.
Yeah.
Okay. So I am so grateful to you, Tamika, for sharing your story on this platform, but just in general. I know it's reaching people and I will be following those finance tips. Okay.
Well, thank you so much for having me. This is a part of my healing journey where I'm becoming more visible and talking about what I experienced because I heard a voice say to me, "How dare God bless you and you not share it?" Thank you for this platform.
Is there anything you want to share with our audience?
Yes, you can find me at all things Temika Cage, whether that's on social media or at temikacage.com. Right now, I am in my early retirement mode where I'm trying to do another unpopular decision of leaving the corporate world. And so I'm documenting that journey in real time. TamikaCage.com.
Amazing. I know people will be tapping in. There were moments of this conversation that have still stayed with me, and I know there are some for you as well. That's usually when the real decisions start. If you're in the middle of one of those big moments, this show is for you. So be sure to subscribe to Unpopular Decisions wherever you get your podcast for more honest conversations about making sense of the messy middle. And please share this episode with somebody else who may feel seen and validated through the conversation. Thank you for listening, and I'm glad you're here.